So, shit happens. And naturally, as a coping mechanism, you find yourself a new hobby. But it's not really about the hobby, it's never been about the hobby. It's just you desperately trying to find a feeling of comfort or warmth that you once had back into your life, and you realize that you cannot feel that way anymore. And it breaks your heart again. After you thought that your heart was so broken that it could not get any more broken, you thought it was safe. Yet, still, somehow it manages to find a new way to break. Because even though you're the one who asked for this, now that you've got it, you feel completely adrift with no compass or map or sense of where to go or what to do. So you find yourself a new hobby. You try to meet new people. You thought you might find some sort of community or sense of connection or belonging, but you realize that you feel even more alone than you did before you started. But you survive, and you learn that you can survive being alone. Hi, welcome to the BoJack Horseman episode.
It's not a mainstream show yet. मतलब this is not a show जो एकदम mainstream popularity में आके इसको लोगों ने completely milk out कर दिया and they have made it intolerable or no, they have ruined it in a way because this is a show जो एक तो अगर आप देख रहे हो तो you have to somewhere invest yourself into the show and
Yeah,
get the references. It's not served on a platter to you. कि
yeah, yeah,
तुम्हारे पास अगर joke भी आ रहा है तो it won't be like अगर joke आ गया here is the joke on the platter and like you can't just enjoy it and even if
you,
there are some trigger points.
yeah, you can't watch it while browsing on Instagram. Like if you're
Right.
watching BoJack, like 30 minutes, it requires your full attention, and it's not also one of those जहाँ पे तुमने चला के वो चल रहा है पीछे और फिर बीच में से कहीं से शुरू कर दिया तुमने देखना, तो वो तुम काफी
Mm.
सारा मिस कर चुके हो और तुम्हें वापस से पूरा देखना पड़ेगा एंड लाइक रीवॉचिंग ऑल्सो सो बेसिकली इसमें रीवॉच वाला भी एक काफी मस्त फंडा था सो देर इज अ सब रेडिट फॉर बोजैक हॉर्समैन ऑब्वियसली क्योंकि सारे
हाँ.
नर्ड लोगों का कूल कूल शो यही है सो इन दैट सब रेडिट like people are still rewatching and they are figuring out finding new things like इस background में ये वाला joke कितना सही था then
Mhm.
when that Todd guy has a loner syndrome basically so when they
Mhm.
zoom out in one scene so all the other people in restaurant were wearing the same clothes as Todd so
Yes.
he was a part of that thing, but he himself felt alone. So which was a very nice symbolic thing, but you would not notice it when you're watching for the first time, especially if you're on Instagram or Twitter.
और एक चीज इसमें बेस्ट है कि this obviously something कि with every rewatch you're watching something new or you're learning something new about the show but I don't think there are many viewers or many even diehard fans of BoJack who can claim that they understood everything that happened in the show because
Yeah,
there are just so many references even if you take the cartoon for example even if they're showing a particular animal right I'm just picking out the most obvious one where BoJack and Wanda are having the argument about him performing autoerotic asphyxiation.
yeah,
And then Wanda says, let's just address the elephant in the room. And then there's the worker who was
yeah,
actually building the complete thing, and
yeah,
he's an elephant.
yeah,
And there are these very subtle jokes and about the show.
yeah. There are a lot of ऐसा पन तो बहुत ज्यादा है, like
Hmm.
which you just don't notice only. The dialogue writing is like at another level. So for
Hmm.
Princess Carolyn dialogues, you watch it, वो पहला वो जो 3 sentence बोलती है, and then you laugh because you
Hmm.
haven't understood a thing. But when you rewatch it, then you understand, oh fuck, that's what she's saying. Because one
Hmm.
time, either you have to rewind it or you have to pause it like after every sentence because it's fucking huge alliterative sentence which is like
Hmm.
three sentences long and you simply can't process it.
So I think ये Princess Carolyn के जो voice actor है, Amy Sedaris.
Yeah,
am a huge fan of hers because उन्होंने इतने टंग ट्विस्टर्स उस शो में बोल दिए हैं इट्स द मोस्ट डिफिकल्ट आई थिंक वॉइस ओवर्स में hers has been the most difficult task
yeah,
but talking about the show and characters there are also many cameos and excellent cameos like isme there are so many people from a range of shows and movies that we've already watched like the mainstream characters for example even the main character one of the main characters Todd and that's just so satisfying as a voice. And then we have The Office के कितने characters, we have Brooklyn Nine-Nine के कितने characters,
Yeah, we
like
had अरे उसमें Daniel Radcliffe वगैरह सब आए थे. Like everyone
हाँ
is there basically who was popular in the 90s or who is very topical right now. तो दोनों का
hmm,
रेफरेंस इधर उधर करके इन्होंने उस मामले में तो it's very there was Rami Malek also. Like
yes,
he's
the
an
director of
Oscar
Filbert.
winning guy. Yeah.
Hmm. I'm a huge fan, Rami Malek. And then there is Stephanie Beatrice, and there's Andre Bronner,
Yeah.
and there's Lisa Kudrow. And these people are supporting cast के जो extended members है, they are like the lead cast members. And they have played good supporting roles,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
if it's cameos, like extended cameos. And it's amazing. This is just the cast, and I'm already gushing over the show, but getting into the show. So BoJack Horseman, right? It's not a binge watch show. Like it's a alone show. It's not something that you can watch with someone. It's not something that you necessarily everyone will have the same views about it, or no everyone will necessarily relate to the same character in the show.
Yeah, it's like you can't watch it with someone and be on the same page basically.
Hmm.
You can be relating to Mr. Peanut Butter or Todd, and the person you're sitting next to is hardly crying over Princess Caroline's life, and you don't even notice that because there are so many parallel tracks going on at once. So it's not a binge watch obviously, and also not a together watch, not a happy couple show ki raat ko laga diya and you're watching it. You will lose your sleep.
Right. See, and that's the beauty of the show because it feels so catered. अगर मैं देख रहा हूँ वो show, तो I'll somewhere find myself there in the show,
Yeah.
and I'll feel कि problems are addressed in a good way, and that is why the show has many trigger points as well. Like for me, there are a set of trigger points that are there in the show, like a few moments that make me so uncomfortable, but then they are very beautifully depicted. Like they are exactly the way
Yeah,
it is,
for
right?
example,
So
like what kind?
for example, if you're talking about, let's say, for example, the stupid piece of shit episode, right?
Mhm.
Where he is going back and forth in his mind and he ends up making the worst decisions,
Yeah.
right? Or there was one episode where Dan goes to Vietnam,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
In the show's ending. And that is a point that I could relate to. Like that has somewhere happened. And then there's just so much more. So that feels, then that's very personal and that's very vulnerable
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can't really have it with anyone else. Like, do you have any particular character that you relate the most to, or a particular scene of that sort that made you very uncomfortable?
So I have many actually. Like character, everyone relates to BoJack in some weird way
Hmm.
because it's written so beautifully. It has so many layers. Like अगर तुम्हारा तीन भी match हो जाता है, you're like I am BoJack, and in reality
Hmm.
you're nowhere close because first you're not successful. Second you're not old because you haven't seen enough life also. So BoJack,
Hmm.
yeah, obviously I relate to it, and there are so many scenes like that episode where it's just him giving an eulogy to his mother. So
Hmm.
that whole episode of 24 minutes funeral just it's just piece to camera. So I remember when I was watching that. So वो शुरू में उसका dad वाला scene आता है and then the theme plays and it directly cuts to the funeral. I'm like okay, someone has died. So it starts.
Hmm.
I'm like 7 minutes into it. I'm like अभी तो 17 मिनट बचे हैं क्या होगा? And next moment the episode is over and you don't even realize it because everything he's saying first you are because it's written so well like I can't tell but when people ask me like what's the best thing written and that episode seriously comes to my mind because 25 minute piece to camera लिखना यार मजाक नहीं है especially for an animated
Hmm.
show and especially
Hmm.
after you are done watching it you don't even feel like कि 25 मिनट गए हैं and
Hmm.
it's written so beautiful like I can keep going on about it how there are jokes every 2 minutes and then there is that one dish moment where the one
Hmm.
line comes and you're like oh fuck I'm attacked so it's full of that and that's basically my favorite episode. I like the stupid I'm a stupid piece of shit episode also. But when the
Hmm.
whole circle completes, where he's telling his sister when she asks that, does a voice keep going in your head, and he says no. So,
Yeah,
so I like how they finish the episodes.
right.
Yeah,
So going back to the free churro episode, that's definitely my favorite episode as well. And I think I've lost count of how many times I've watched it because it's just so fucking beautiful.
yeah,
The jokes,
yeah,
like there's this one, the one where he's making jokes about what's common between my mom and this.
yeah,
One gets carried in the basket,
yeah,
and one gets buried in the casket and everything. And then there's just this moment where he says that one is this and the other is a huge pitch. I'm like,
yeah.
fuck, wasn't ready for it.
And this
And
is like he keeps doing those jokes also. No? Knock once if you're happy. Knock once if you want me to end this.
and then there's this my mother would be so ashamed that I spent so much time talking about myself on her eulogy. And it's just there. It's just so many holes that like so much void that he has within himself
Yeah,
that he was expecting that his mother would fill one day.
yeah,
And this sounds very wrong, but but yeah, in all seriousness. And then that possibility is just taken away from him. He just knows that अब नहीं होगा.
hmm,
जो अभी तक नहीं हुआ, even though I knew that this woman would never give it to me, I was still holding on कि क्या पता, like एक दिन उसका dementia कहीं ऐसी जगह ले जाएगा जब like she will forget that she has to ignore his existence,
yeah.
and then probably she will actually notice him, and then that's just not there.
All the sad ones are the last ones, no, in the season. I
Yeah,
also like that arc.
yeah.
कि तुम ऐसा हैप्पी हैप्पी शुरू होते हो हर सीजन में, एंड इट जस्ट कीप्स गेटिंग डार्कर डार्कर डार्कर. So उसमें एंड में like when he is with his mom and she doesn't recognize him, and then he's like
Mm-hmm.
it's okay. So basically he forgives her,
Mm-hmm.
like in his own way.
Times
Yeah,
Arrow.
in his own way. Yeah,
The Times Arrow episode where he leaves her at that
old
old
age
age
home.
home,
Yeah,
and she finally recognizes him. He's like, BoJack, where are we? And then he's like, can you taste the ice
yeah.
cream?
You remember the
And he's like,
episode
fuck.
names and all, dude.
Yeah, I am pretty obsessed with the show. So yes, there are few episodes that I really like, Vishal. इसमें there is the fish out of water episode that is
Yeah.
just so fucking beautiful. इट्स लाइक पूरे शो में उसका खाली स्टार्टिंग है कुछ मिनट में लाइन से, एंड उसमें उसको लाइन है ही नहीं.
Hmm.
लाइक यू टॉकिंग अबाउट राइटिंग एंड द डायलॉग पार्ट ऑफ इट, वो समझ में आता है. बट देन दिस अगर कॉमेडी हो तो समझ में आती है. बट व्हेन यू आर ट्राइंग टू पोर्ट्रे व्हाट बोजैक हॉर्समैन इज ट्राइंग
Yeah.
टू,
Yeah.
you can't, like, having something with no dialogues at all is very difficult, and especially that because he has that note,
Hmm.
like
in
see
in
in
that
this
in that
terrifying.
poster that I have in my room, that is the quote. That is the quote written there. In this terrifying world, all we have are the connections we make.
I'll tell you what the most beautiful part about the Free Shiro episode that I
Hmm.
love. The Free Shiro episode is connected to other episodes and other references of BoJack. For example, in Free Shiro episode, BoJack says that me, my mother, and my father we were drowning, and there was just this sense that we are drowning together.
Yeah.
And in there are these moments where you remember that you can swim. And this is there in Fish Out of Water, where he has that seahorse baby,
Hmm.
and he has to jump off that ledge, and people are chasing, and then he realizes that he can swim.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there is like where he's running, and that old horse tells him that it gets better
Hmm.
every day. It gets a little better. You have to do it every day. That's the hard part, but it does get better. And then we see that in Free Shuru again, where he says it does not get better, it does not get easier. You have to be constant, and that is why it is so goddamn
Yeah.
hard. And like that is why BoJack is not a show that you can just watch किसी भी चीज के साथ, because BoJack is like, हाँ इसमें concentrate करो, तुमको याद आएगा कि अरे ये fuck, like over the time this is what he has
It's
learned.
one of those
Like
shows, जैसे like you meet fans तो ब्रेकिंग बैड का, जिनको एक एक चीज याद है कि इस एपिसोड में ये हुआ था,
hmm.
इसमें ये हुआ था, एंड यूर लाइक क्या कर रहा है ब्रो. बट बोजैक में यू वांट टू बी दैट गाय कि मुझे याद
Yeah.
होना चाहिए इसका. लाइक इफ यू लव वाचिंग इट, you would actually follow it, and like out of just for the pure love of the show, not for being cool at parties.
Right. BoJack is not a show that I would show
Yeah.
off for somewhere. I will not go and like, bro, I was like Breaking Bad. I will say, अरे Breaking Bad देखा ना मैंने, and like friends like, हाँ friends देखा है, Office हाँ, अरे तो Office क्या मस्त है, and when the minute someone says BoJack Horseman, I'm like हाँ, BoJack Horseman देखा
देखा है।
यार, देखा यार,
चल मैं चलता हूँ, मैंने उबर बुलाई है।
like अब नहीं होगा मेरे से, अब मैं थोड़ा मेरे को कोई पार्टी कोई वॉशरूम कहाँ है, and I hope you have multiple because I'm going to sit there for half an hour. I had this joke that I'm sitting in the washroom and my roommate is knocking. It's like अबे कितना देर लगेगा क्या हो रहा है? And I'm just like wiping my tears and closing BoJack Horseman and like अरे यार porn देख रहा था. Because like I would rather admit कि I was watching porn and jerking
Yeah,
off than admit I was just in the corner sitting and crying and watching BoJack
yeah,
Horseman.
yeah, same. And like, it's not like you don't want to admit, but because if the other person has also watched, then your party is gone, basically. Then, then you are just
Yeah,
discussing that.
because all of a sudden you are just
Hmm.
naked, like you're just entirely, completely naked. Like Vishal, you and I haven't talked much,
Yeah,
right? But we have an idea of what the other person is like just by talking about the points that we like about the show and the points that we related to in the show. Like वो character sketch mind में अपने आप automatically बन
yeah.
जाता है.
Huh.
So I want to talk about a few things here,
Yeah.
Vishal. So in your opinion, okay, who did BoJack hurt the most?
Himself. That is the perfect answer, I think. He
That,
hurt himself the most, but he hurt a lot of people. Like
Mhm.
Princess Carolyn, he hurt. He broke up, then didn't calls only when he needs work, or doesn't follow up
Hmm.
on her life at all. And she also mentions this a couple of times, like, why do you care?
Hmm.
And she is also like
Hmm.
very depressed, sad, lonely. She doesn't talk about this abortion to anyone, and she knows this
Hmm.
guy for 20 years, but she knows he is not serious, and she thinks that he doesn't care, but he cares, but he doesn't show it. So like I am in that, like in that show, if Princess Carolyn or anyone had reached out to Bojack, I'm very sure he would have helped,
Hmm.
or he would have
Right.
done anything of that sort, like which would like either give them a rehab, or get them into something, get them into this, or maybe just talk. But no one reached out because of the persona he created, and the thing, like self obsession, obviously, because he was an actor. So he would just
Hmm.
keep talking about himself, and people would think that he doesn't care. Can keep going on.
वहां पे there are things where we have seen that people have reached out to BoJack, and the problem is, see, I have analyzed the
Mhm.
character, and it's not that BoJack as a character is not someone who doesn't care, but after a time, since there is just so much going on within himself, he tries to find a way that helps him while helping others, and that is what sabotages the other person's recovery.
Yeah.
Because if we look at Cyril in Wala
Mhm.
part, right? He did her bad, like it was dirty. Matlab, while she's not on the top list for me, for which is the character that he hurt the most, but that was bad. Like uska recovery, he was helping her out, but then he was making her more miserable. And the same happened with Diane in ways. For me, Bojack hurt the most would be, as you said, himself and many characters. But I think one person to whom he was very unfair was Herb.
Yeah,
Herb
Herb
Kazas.
Kazas, he was very, Todd also, he was very unfair. Like he would, like the whole equation between them was he is taking him for granted and he doesn't mind, which is
Hmm.
a very serious thing.
बट हर्ब के पॉइंट में एक और चीज आ गया, टॉड का जो कंट्रीब्यूशन था टू बोजैक्स लाइफ, दैट वाज नॉट वेरी एविडेंट. इट वाज देयर अंडर द लाइंस, बट इट वाज नॉट वेरी एविडेंट फॉर Herb, right? Herb has been a standing pillar next to Bojack throughout everything, and the one chance he had to have his back as well, he chuckled out. So that's
Yeah,
that's
that's very shitty. But there are so many instances like that. Like वो वाला भी तो था यार, when he goes and meets that girl,
Penny.
Penny. and फिर उसकी बेटी के साथ वो whatever that scene was, he didn't even clear it out for anyone. Like the whole show you see,
Yeah.
like कहीं तो explanation देगा वो, उसने दी नहीं, because he thinks that I'm that sort of guy.
And somewhere, even when he was talking to that journalist or that
Mhm.
reporter who recorded the conversation with Bojack, he even says, "Ki I keep wondering that would have I done
Hmm.
it?" And it's because somewhere there's no explanation.
Even if not to the reporter, like even if you don't want to say it to them, he should have come
Mm,
clean to the family of her and to her also, and just tweeted out something, anything. But he just kept
mm,
running away from it, which was very shitty.
right.
Like, which makes us think that he might have done it. And you also realize कि वो क्यों नहीं ऐसा बोल रहा, क्योंकि उसको लगता है कि अगर वो बोलेगा then people won't believe him because he has been a
Hmm,
shitty person all his life.
right. And somewhere even he doesn't
Yeah.
believe that. So, okay. And now one thing, like now while we are talking about this, we talked about how Herb has had a significant contribution to Bojack being whatever he is in
Hmm.
in the good way, like not the bad traits, but like the good ones. Who do you think has been the most selfless human for
Mr.
Bojack?
Peanut Butter, no?
But
Mr. Peanut Butter, like all of the characters that are there have been sort of like
hmm,
they were there when he needed them. Like everyone did put his problems before them. Princess Caroline, especially. Mr. Peanut Butter, if he ever came to him with his problem, he would try to solve it, even though he was very shitty to him. And Todd also gave him very like जो रिमाइंडर्स होते हैं बेसिकली, वो काफी सारे टॉड
hmm,
के कोट्स भी फेमस है ना, लाइक यू आर द रीजन, यू कीप डूइंग दिस, व्हाई आर यू
hmm.
ब्लेमिंग एनीवन एल्स.
You can't just do shitty things and feel bad about yourself like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Is it okay? But I think Peanut Butter ka has been the most selfless because Peanut Butter is that kind of a person. Like Peanut Butter is
Yeah.
annoyingly happy,
And
first of all.
second, everyone
Yeah,
knows a peanut butter in their life.
Peanut Butter is like, यार मेरे को पता है तो खुश क्यों है? Like you should not be happy. Like you don't understand this. Like I know you are happy and I'm very happy that you are happy. But what I don't realize is कि यार अगर मैं तेरी जगह होता, I would not be able to feel about myself the way you feel about yourself. And that is, I don't know, jealousy, but it's just there. It's like, how can you be so unaware?
Not unaware. Like he's very much aware. Like when Diane leaves him,
Hmm.
or there are multiple things he finds out about BoJack or Princess Carolyn or Diane. He confronts them, asks for an answer. They behave shittily to him, and they leave without any explanation. So what is he supposed to do? So basically,
Hmm.
he is sad. Like he's aware of things that are being done behind his back, or people talk about him in a shitty way, but he just chooses to ignore it, which is depressingly sad. Like, if this guy is doing that on purpose, but we never see him mulling over any of this. And I think that was a conscious choice, because that whole arc can also be very different. Like it's like अगर अगला शो स्पिन ऑफ बनाना है, तो जैसे सॉल गुडमैन का था, इसमें मिस्टर पीनट बटर का बन. Like,
Hmm.
what did he do after that exact scene which happened in BoJack? He can
Hmm.
be one of those guys who is sitting alone drinking till morning and then coming out all chirpy, happy, putting on a face for the world.
And it would be so ironical given the fact that he copied
Yeah,
Bojack's career. So it only serves right if he actually comes up with his own Mr. Peanut Butter show, which will be like, हाँ तूने यहाँ भी copy कर लिया. It's like a very
yeah.
elaborate practical joke, but
And
हाँ that would.
character भी copy हो गया.
But this बहुत interesting subreddit मैंने पढ़ा था where the five main characters are actually depicting the five stages of grief, where Peanut Butter
Hmm.
is denial, which is what we just discussed. Diane is anger,
Hmm.
which keeps coming out, and I don't think we
Yeah.
need to discuss that. Bojack again,
Hmm.
depression. Princess Carolyn was negotiating or like bargaining, where she was, and that was very apparent because that is what her job required her
Hmm.
to do as well. So, and lastly, Todd was acceptance.
Yeah.
These few realizations or these few trivia that I keep getting, this just makes the show so much more beautiful for me. कि हाँ, oh fuck, like I didn't even know this, and now that I see it, it makes
Yeah, it
sense.
makes sense. Todd and towards the end, Princess Caroline also, like she was also in the acceptance mode.
हाँ,
Like ठीक है अब जो हो रहा है होने दो.
yes. I love how stuff panned out for Princess Caroline. Like we know a Princess Caroline, and we are not sure if something like that would happen to her. Like if she has a happy ending, would
That
hopeful,
episode
you
was
know?
so sad when they were in future and Princess Caroline's granddaughter was doing
Yeah.
something, and then towards the
Hmm.
end she just reveals the whole plot. Like I just imagine her
Hmm.
saying good things about me. I'm like, oh shit.
And उसमें भी ना एक thing is where BoJack tells her कि uh, but that's not real. And then she says he so what,
Yeah.
that makes me happy. And ये शो में एक चीज आई हैव रियलाइज विशाल कि इसमें एक चीज एम्फसाइज की गई है दैट यू कीप लाइक डोंट थिंक twice before doing something uh, if it makes you happy. फॉर एग्जाम्पल ये वाला पॉइंट जो हमने बताया ये था. सेकेंड इज कडली विस्कर्स को जब वो लोग विजिट करने जाते हैं डायन एंड बोजैक. सो डायन सेज दैट्स अ लिटिल सेल्फिश and he says I don't care, or I feel good about myself for once in such a long time. I'm not going to feel bad about it. It takes so much time to realize that you're pathetic, and even more to realize that it
Yeah,
doesn't have to be
yeah.
that way. An overall show, who do you think is the worst character? Like BoJack is
Worst
not the
as
worst, even though if even like in my opinion, as in like the most pathetic one, like this character को देख के मेरे को लगा यार ये character ना, it's like नहीं यार ये character किसी की life में नहीं होना चाहिए. And like while that's BoJack, but now that we see things from BoJack's end, मेरे को वो BoJack नहीं लगता. Like for example, I'll start. मेरे लिए the worst character of the show was the therapy horse,
well.
because the complete show revolves around the focus on how good therapy is, and then it uska end, Bojack's karma catching up to him, is actually a therapy horse going forward and revealing his own
Yeah,
vulnerable
yeah.
insecurities.
And then drinking and running. I didn't like the MSNBC portrayal also. The guy who would come because just for the general hatred of journalists, but also he wasn't any different.
Hmm,
So he would keep saying things, he would keep
right.
popping, like prodding, poking. So I hated that guy, but
Hmm.
I don't remember like the level of hatred I would have for any other character in the show because everyone was doing their part.
There are few topics that the show has
Hmm.
touched throughout its journey, and few of these topics are very taboo and very controversial. And matlab, if you're touching them, it's not just about how less these topics are spoken about generally, but it's also कि अगर आप ये topics के बारे में बात करो, you have to be very careful because you want to say right about it, project
Yeah.
your right opinions on it. You just don't want to fuck it up. For example, 13 Reasons Why was an attempt to
Hmm.
talk about suicide prevention, but it failed to do, right? Because you have to be careful when you're choosing topics like these. And Bojack, in my opinion, has done fantastic on this ground. So there are a few taboo topics that Bojack has touched upon. Which one has been your
No, I
favorite?
like the whole depression thing only. Like the way it was shown, it's the most real depiction of depression. Like you are not always at the in the corner of your room with lights dim. It's never like that,
Hmm.
and it will be never like that for anyone. Like it is the darkest phase when you are and you can still be happy. Not happy, like you can
Hmm.
still pretend to be happy. So that sort of also sealed the deal for me, like the whole thing about how depression is and how you should go to therapy and how. But that I don't think it helped in removing the taboo. What I noticed was entirely different. Most of the people who watched the show, they started using the term depression very loosely. Like they would just say, I'm
Yeah.
depressed, I'm watching this, then I'm getting depressed. But you are not getting depressed, you're getting sad. And like even though my brand of everything what I'm doing on Instagram or anywhere, I just like to do sad tweets or anything. But I would very carefully not mention the word depression because it's nothing like that. You
Right.
can feel shitty for days, but it doesn't have to be depression. You can't say you're depressed. And so that in that sort, I don't think the show helped very much, because whenever I see the, like, even the memes also, no, like they just share, people just
Huh.
share casually with using, like, when I'm at my most depressed. I'm like, what is this is not what the show intended to. But second thing which is very good about this is people are not shying away from saying this. पहले तो कोई बताता ही नहीं था, अभी सभी कोई बता
Hmm.
रहा है. So it's a thing of two extremes. So if you're not shying away, then you are basically
Hmm.
erasing the taboo also. Like, अगर तुम बोलने में इतना comfortable हो रहे हो, and
Hmm.
you are going to therapy, and you are even considering going to therapy, which is a huge step that a show,
Hmm.
like a visual medium, has done. Like, just 12 hours of watching anything.
Apart from that, as you said na कि that's not how depression is, and वो बहुत correct portrayal of depression is, and they've addressed these questions, like when peanut butter के show पे BoJack goes and he confronts कि what else could the universe owe you, BoJack, and he has listed on that BoJack has a great life, he has everything going right for him, he has a good movie coming out, he's going to be running for Oscars, this is that, and he says that I just want to feel good about myself the way you do. And that's like those few moments जो throughout the show मिलते हैं, those are the depiction कि हाँ देखो यहाँ पे ये जो चीज है, ये है at the back of my head constantly, even if I'm okay, like I am, like I'm not okay, but I'm
Yeah.
not okay, like I don't know, but it's just there, okay. I don't want your help in solving it out, and it's not even that I need someone else to solve it out, it's just going to go, but it's a
Yeah.
gradual process.
That a real change that I have seen is, like, people became aware. First of all, like, the young generation ज़्यादा
Hmm.
जल्दी aware हो जाते हैं, because they are very open minded, but it's very difficult to make older
Hmm.
people aware of this. Like, this is not a taboo. So in offices, now offices में
Hmm.
decision making power तेरे boss के पास ही होता है basically, and that boss is not like some
Hmm.
26-year-old dude. He or she will be some 40-year
Hmm.
old or plus lady, or 35 plus, and it's not going to be very easy to tell them, like, what's going on in your life if you're not feeling well,
Hmm.
mentally well, or anything. But after that show, and if you know that the person has watched it and they love it, they don't think it's like bullshit or anything,
Hmm.
then you could happily tell them, like, I'm not, I have a dose of anxiety in the morning, and I can't come to office till 3 p.m., and they will understand. एंड ऐसा काफी सारे अक्रॉस द स्पेक्ट्रम
Hmm.
मैंने काफी सारे ऑफिसेज में देखा, जहाँ पे देर वर पीपल हु वर टेकिंग मेंटल हेल्थ लीव एंड पुटिंग इट ऑन स्लैक. लाइक,
Hmm.
मतलब तुम ऑफिस में, यू आर नॉट शाइंग अवे फ्रॉम एनीथिंग, यू आर जस्ट सेइंग, आई एम नॉट फीलिंग मेंटली वेल, आई
Right.
विल ज्वाइन आफ्टर 3 p.m. बिकॉज दैट मेक्स सेंस, क्योंकि वो तीन
Hmm.
बजे तक तो वैसे ही काम नहीं करने वाला था, तो आगे क्या उखाड़ लेगा. तो अभी वो 3 बजे तक चिल तो कर सकता
Hmm.
है, एंड पीपल आर एक्सेप्टिंग इट इज अ गुड थिंग. If it's happening because of the show, and for 2-3 cases I know it happened because of the show.
नहीं, मेरे केस में भी ये हुआ है, इवन माय ऑर्ग हैज इम्प्लीमेंटेड इट, बट आई वर्क एट माइक्रोसॉफ्ट, तो वो एक अलग ही लेवल हो गया, आई एम प्रीटी श्योर इट्स नॉट बिकॉज ऑफ दैट, बट देन आई सी पीपल एक्चुअली टेकिंग दैट, लाइक वो तुम्हारे
Yeah.
पास एक ऑप्शन फैसिलिटी दी गई है, सो ये यूटिलाइजिंग दैट, एंड स्पेशली कोविड के टाइम पे I am glad that there was something that came out that was telling people about this, because most of them are experiencing it now, like even the peanut butters that I we had in our lives, we can
Dude, I
see
have
कि हाँ
seen
ये इसका ये भी जा रहा
extroverts
है,
are
इसको
going
finally
crazy. So when the lockdown was extreme, no, so people I know who are super
hmm,
chirpy, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, party, 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 and they couldn't do it for 2 months. They were, like, literally sad. They were begging for people to come to their place.
अरे होता है यार, ये तो काफी देखा है, मतलब, और जो स्पेशली द वंस हु हैड टू, like who had the luxury of being alone and now had to come back and live with their parents or back with their family, and they suddenly
Yeah.
feel so trapped, और उन सब केसेस में become more self aware. लाइक तुम्हारे पास सिर्फ तुम हो, पेरेंट्स से तुम्हारी बनती नहीं है, तुम अकेले बैठ के अपने रूम में खुद के साथ रहोगे, तुम्हें पता चलेगा ओहो ये हूं मैं, लाइक मैं फाइनली पता चल रहा है, एंड देन यू रियलाइज कि ओह अच्छा आदमी तो नहीं हूं मैं एंड दैट रियलाइजेशन, दैट
Yeah,
राइट देयर, दैट्स वेयर इट स्टार्ट्स कि
like
ओह
like when you
चलो
realize you're not
कुछ कर भी नहीं सकते इसका
how
मतलब।
you thought you are an easygoing person, but you are really not. you you
हम्म,
are living in a bubble which you created yourself, and you can't even talk to anyone who is not on your wavelength.
like you were looking at life through rose colored glasses, and now those glasses are off, and now you see the
Yeah.
red flags within yourself, and they
Yeah.
are not pretty. But one of the like as you said, right, taboo processes ka jo say you talked about depression, and वहाँ depression से associated there are more things, like there was the zebra episode, right, जहाँ पे BoJack का therapy, like BoJack के therapist is talking about how things go on with him, and
Mhm.
they show the complete process of therapy, and that's nice, that's like you, if you're showing it through the eyes of a therapist, it makes it more
Yeah.
comfortable for
Yeah.
someone to actually approach someone.
Alcoholism is also not
Hmm.
you needing a reason to drink. It's like तुम खाली बैठे और वो बैठ
Yeah.
के एक बॉटल खत्म कर देता था. So and they just showed it very
Hmm.
casually. Like they didn't need anything. इसका कुछ reason
Hmm.
चाहिए या अभी क्यों पिएगा या ये अभी क्यों करेगा. He was just drinking like dude I'm an alcoholic.
Hmm.
And उसका rehab में भी पी रहा है वो. So it's a serious issue.
मतलब सोसाइटी looks at these people, like अगर कोई अल्कोहलिक है, ठीक है, and if he is addicted or if even there is a drug addict, society treats these people as कि हाँ ये हमारा हमारा लड़का नहीं है ये, or like you know
Mhm.
this person is not among us, but no one, like perspective, perspective is a beautiful thing, विशाल, कि अगर मैं इसके perspective से सब चीज देखूंगा तो सब सही लगेगी, and I'm glad that they showed things through BoJack का perspective, because BoJack को they had defined as a guy who was very fucked up, and then they show कि why is that there, and that
Yeah.
helps in
Yeah.
self correction as well. So that's there. But my favorite taboo topic that they talk about, or you know, it's not really a taboo topic, but they drafted it out very beautifully. It's about the hypocrisy of Hollywood, or if we
Mhm.
can take it out as an analogy here, Bollywood. वो they have talked about it in various places. For example,
Yeah.
how everything
Yeah.
is a marketing strategy, more or less, right? And everyone knows, but no one's aware. Like किसी को पता नहीं कि हाँ, मेरे को पता है कि हाँ ये लोग बॉलीवुड वाले तो ऐसे ही होते हैं, but then you see कि वहां पे वो है, and like और someone would be like कि बिना
Hmm.
किसी रीजन के वो बॉलीवुड तो खराब है.
They are preparing him for Oscar.
Hmm.
Like this movie is going to Oscar, you will get nominated. So they are buying off interviews and everything, PR and all.
Hmm.
So that's like really normal. So people who are not from the industry and they watch it, they think it doesn't happen like this, but it happens exactly like this. Like
Hmm.
even in Bollywood, even in Hollywood. So you just hype it up so much that they have to consider it.
And like एक और taboo topic है that deserves a mention here, Vishal, is
Yeah, I was just
asexuality.
thinking about it, but it's not as much a taboo as people don't even know that it exists. It's a yeah,
Exactly.
it's one of those.
Exactly.
But I'm glad they tackled it.
I'm pretty sure इंडिया में अगर कोई किसी को जाके बोलेगा ना कि ब्रो मैं एसेक्सुअल है, सामने से रिस्पॉन्स आएगा, ब्रो
I
वाइग्रा
don't
खा
know
के देखना.
personally. I don't know
It's just
anyone.
that. It's
Like I know all the LGBTQ, but I don't
हाँ.
know any asexual, or I don't know anyone who knows.
But one more thing that I love in BoJack Horseman is that not everyone is born with nice parents. I did not realize it to the extent that I did after watching BoJack Horseman. I've had few people close to me who didn't have the best childhood, and they spoke. They were, brave enough to speak to me about it. And इंडिया में स्पेशली वी हैव दिस नोशन कि पेरेंट्स जो करते हैं अच्छे के लिए ही करते हैं, लाइक पेरेंट्स गलत नहीं करेंगे पेरेंट, बट व्हाट यू डोंट अंडरस्टैंड इज दैट माइट भी उनका इंटेंशन वैसा नहीं, और मे बी इवन इंटेंशन अच्छा हो वैसा हो, हु द फक नोस, लाइक आई वी डोंट रियलाइज द concept of parenthood until and unless we are old enough. I'm 23. Okay, few years down the line probably, uh, India may, if we go back 20 years, मेरे अराउंड एज में एंड I'm going to be 24, so 25-26 में शादी हो जाती थी, एंड 27-28 में it was normal to have kids, and even now it is. तो understand this, I don't see myself growing up like mentally इतना ज़्यादा that I'll be the ideal parent. I'll have my flaws, I might be good at parenting, but I'll still have my flaws. I can make wrong decisions for my kid. So I really love that they show the trauma that is carried forward in the child because of the parents. कि हाँ, like how parents project their own insecurity to their child, and how that, like those small things that maybe even the parents don't realize, or even the kid doesn't realize, in the long run amount to that kid becoming what he becomes, or the problems that kid has, the insecurities that kid has, or whatnot. So I really love that Bojack was very open about it. If we look at Bojack's parents, and if we look at Diane's parents, that's a very strong message.
So one thing that's the most notable point for the show, and that one thing that I think the most uh, important relationship within the show,
Yeah.
BoJack Dan. Okay, बहुत ज़्यादा कोडिपेंडेंट रिलेशनशिप, at the same time काफी
Yeah.
individually
Yeah.
fucked up.
Both of them. Mm.
Bojack and Diane, both of them understood what it felt like, just being there. Like they knew exactly what the problem was for the other person, and it was they were very alike, and they brought out the worst in each other. But at the same time, they were the only, like if it's a dark room, the light is only shining upon two of them. Like they can only see
Yeah.
each other,
Yeah.
and no one else can see them. You know Bojack, and there are many instances where I see this. Like for example, when Dan was crashing at Bojack's house, okay, it's somewhere in season 2 when Bojack was dating Wanda, and Bojack ke ghar pe Dan
Mhm.
crashed because she couldn't make it in Cordovia, and Bojack asks her that why wouldn't you go home, and she says because I don't want to go home and have him ask about what happened. I just want him. I'll go back and he'll just
Yeah.
snuggle
Yeah.
up to me and he'll ask me how my day was. And then the view from halfway down, when Bojack अपनी hallucination में he's thinking कि oh, I'm talking to Diane, and he's like, if nothing matters, can we stay on the phone at least? And the only thing he asks her is how was your day, because he understands कि हाँ
Yeah.
इस इंसान को,
Yeah.
like I know
Like
this
both
person
of them knew each
and I
other.
know,
That was the only
like,
feeling I got. Like if someone could
mm,
save BoJack, it has to be Diane,
mm,
and that's why also the ending was very fitting. Like when they are sitting in the terrace and
mm.
talking about life, basically. That's what they should have done in the first episode, but they did it in the last.
And Lani, last minute was fitting because there were many things where मतलब it was a very gradual process कि मतलब you understand their journey and then you
Yeah.
understand
Why
why
it
that
means
conversation
so
took
much.
place and
Yeah.
why that conversation was important. And Bojack says this कि uh, it wouldn't be funny if this was the last time that we talked. And then Dan doesn't reply back because somewhere, if we are looking at Bojack and Dan,
Yeah.
Bojack needs Dan more than Dan needs Bojack. Dan is more self-sufficient. Like she can take it forward by herself, while Bojack cannot. And she doesn't reply back because she doesn't want to feel guilty of not having it, like not being the one who continues this. But also, she somewhere cannot take it along with everything that she has
Yeah.
on herself.
Yeah. She's
So,
one of those people
very
जो
true.
ऐसा अचानक ही सब कुछ deactivate कर देते ना and she'll never come back. Like she can be
Huh.
one of those people who just escapes and you'll never hear from them again. And Bojack, I think, is also very scared of that.
Like,
Like how she escaped to Vietnam, or how she escaped
mm,
to other city only to in search of
mm,
a story and all. So I
mm,
think Bojack was also deep down. He just wanted her to be there. कि ऐसे भाग मत.
mm. Or Bojack somewhere wants to do that. Like Bojack
Yeah,
wants to be self-sufficient, like the way Diane is. And while Diane is not recovering any much, but वहां पे वो लोग जाके we see BoJack going to LA,
Hmm.
right, and to meet Penny. Somewhere he
Yeah.
tries that, he
He
attempts
fucked
that,
up
and he fucks up,
because he was
and
chasing
he
the
fucks up
past.
bad. नहीं, उसने
Yeah.
yes, and while
Yeah.
Dan was exploring the present, like BoJack wants to get out of his comfort zone that doesn't feel too comforting, but at the same time वो अपने एक comfort zone से निकल के दूसरे
Agree.
comfort zone में
Yeah.
जाने की कोशिश कर रहा है.
Totally.
And that also while we're talking about taboo topics, इसमें एक ये वाला part भी आता है about the Diane का antidepressants वाला journey. I'm glad
Yeah,
that
the
they actually
weight gain
showed the
was
weight
very
gain
nice.
and
Everyone
how
talked about it
they
also. Like he was really appreciated
hmm,
for the way Dan looked
hmm,
in the later part of the season. सब ऐसा राफेल को
hmm,
ट्वीट वगैरह कर रहे थे.
hmm,
Good job because no one shows this. This is
hmm,
the this is the basic. तुम्हें हेडेक होते सैरिडॉन लोगे सैरिडॉन का साइड इफेक्ट कुछ होगा
hmm,
वो साइड इफेक्ट दिखा रहे थे वो and people
hmm.
just appreciated it so much because because the topic was a taboo.
Chills मतलब throughout the recording वो एक chills था कि हाँ यार this topic is nice and like ये topic actually
Yeah,
hit
yeah,
किया था कहीं ना
yeah.
कहीं like it hit home.
Hold up.